Vocabulary makes up 25% of your IELTS speaking and writing score, but most students never learn it in the right way, or they just don't improve their vocabulary at all. In this video, I'm going to show you some things that Band 7 plus students do to learn vocabulary and to use it correctly. Now, by the way, if you're not sure how to prepare for IELTS and you want a full step-by-step system which will show you exactly how to get Band 7 Plus, make sure you check out our preparation course. It's taught by me, an IELTS examiner, so you know what you're learning works in the real test. Okay, before we get into the tips, we need to talk more about why is vocabulary important in IELTS? Well, the first reason is, like we talked about before, is it's worth 25% of your writing and speaking band. Let me show you when that could be a problem. Let's pretend for speaking you get 7 for fluency, 6 for vocabulary, 7 for grammar, and 7 for pronunciation. What's your overall speaking band score? Is it 6.5 or is it 7? Well, the answer is it's 6.5. So if you get 6 for vocabulary and 7 for everything else, this is going to drag your speaking score down to 6.5. For the second issue, it helps you to express your ideas clearly. The more words you know, the better you'll be able to explain yourself and support your main ideas. Next up, we have it helps with paraphrasing, and IELTS often tests your ability to say the same thing in a different way, especially in reading, listening, and writing. The next reason is better vocabulary allows you to understand more in listening. Even if you know 1 million strategies, if you don't know the meaning of the words that you hear, well, it's going to be very hard to get the answers correct. And finally, it helps you find the answers faster in reading. Many reading questions use synonyms or paraphrases from the text. And if you know these words, you'll be able to find the answers very quickly. So, in summary, learning vocabulary can help you in many ways if you're going to take the IELTS test. So I recommend that you do not ignore this part of your English. Now, you might be thinking, okay, how do I learn vocabulary? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about right now. The first tip is learn words in context. You might be thinking, what is context? Well, context refers to the situation or group of words around a word that help you understand its meaning. It shows you how the word is used in a sentence or conversation. Context is really important when you're learning vocabulary for a few main reasons. First, it's going to help you to understand the correct meaning, because a lot of words have more than one meaning, and that can change depending on the situation. For example, the word run can mean to exercise, but run can also mean to manage a business. Now, the next reason is it helps you to use words naturally and correctly, because you'll see which other words usually go with those words. For example, we say make a decision. We do not say do a decision. And the final reason is that it may help you remember the word easier, because a lot of the time it's easier when you see a real sentence instead of just memorizing a word alone. So how do you learn words in context? Well, it's pretty simple. Of course, you need to look at the meaning, but you also need to look at example sentences which are correct. And when you're looking at a sentence, you need to notice the other words around it. Let me show you an example. Many experts emphasize the importance of critical thinking in modern education systems. So the main word we are looking at here is emphasize. From the context, we can see that emphasize is a verb because it comes after a subject. And the subject here is experts, and it shows an action. If we look before the word, we see experts, and that's a noun, like I said, and that tells us who's doing the action. After the word, we have the importance of critical thinking in modern education systems, and that's what they're emphasizing. So we can learn a lot about this word from just one sentence. In summary, remember to always learn words in context and look at what's around that word. It's really going to give you a better understanding of the word and how to use it. Let's move on to tip number 2, which is learn natural word groups, collocations, and phrases. You may have heard these words before, collocation and phrase, but what do they actually mean? Let's start with collocation, which is a group of words that are often used together naturally in English. For example, we say make a decision or heavy rain, not do a decision or strong rain. For a phrase, well, a phrase is a small group of words that work together to express an idea, but they do not form a complete sentence. For example, on the other hand, or as a result. Collocations and phrases show you which words sound right together in English. If you learn them, you will use vocabulary in the same way that native speakers do, and you'll avoid making common mistakes. This is really important because for a Band 7 in lexical resource, it says you need to have an awareness of collocation. Let's have a look at a few examples so you can see what I mean. Let's start with collocations. Catch a cold. Okay, we say catch and cold together. Catch a cold. Set a goal. Same thing. Set goal. Gain experience. Keep a promise. And take responsibility. Let's have a look at some phrases. As far as I know. It depends on the situation. At the end of the day. I've never considered that. Something that stands out is. The more you learn collocations and phrases, the more natural your English will sound, and you'll also naturally avoid common mistakes. Let's move on to tip 3 now, which is don't memorize word lists. Let's pretend that I give you this. It's a list of some words and their meanings. Yes, it has the meaning, but do these really help you? Does this information show you how to use these words in a sentence? Well, probably not, because vocabulary isn't just knowing about the meaning, it's knowing how to use the word and when to use the word. So instead of just memorizing lists, you need to learn through context like we talked about before. Here are some things you can think about. Number 1, what the word actually means. Part of speech. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? And if you know the part of speech, that gives you a lot of information about how to use the word. Pronunciation. How to say it correctly. Remember, never guess, always check. Spelling, how do you write it? Collocations, what are some words that are used with this word? Grammar patterns, so do you need to use prepositions or other structures when using this word? Register, so this is talking about, is the word formal, is it informal, is it casual, or is it just a normal word? Connotation, so what's the feeling behind the word that you've just learned? For example, think about the word hate. Well, hate is a very strong, negative word. That's the connotation, the feeling, the strength behind that word. And also think about example sentences so you can see how it's used in real English. All right, let's move on to the next one now, which is learn the pronunciation. A lot of students just look at the spelling of words and guess how to pronounce the words, but this often leads to incorrect pronunciation. And remember, when it comes to speaking, pronunciation is 25% of your overall speaking score. I've seen this happen so many times. Students pronounce English words incorrectly for months and months, if not years and years, because they simply didn't check the pronunciation. It doesn't matter how sure you are about the pronunciation by just looking at the word. Always check the pronunciation. So how do you check the pronunciation? Well, simply go to the Cambridge English Learners Dictionary and it will show you how to pronounce the word. And you can also click the button to hear how the sound is pronounced. So let me quickly show you some words that are often mispronounced by students. The first one is photographer. Photographer. A lot of students incorrectly say photographer, photographer with the stress on the gra. But no, the stress should be on the tog. Photographer, photographer. Next one, three with a th. Students often don't say the th sound, they'll just say the t. So they'll say tree, tree instead of three, three. Next one, a lot of students pronounce the as a W. So instead of saying very, very, they'll say worry, worry with a W, but that's not correct. Next one, a lot of students pronounce beach as the word you can see here. Instead of saying B, they say bit, bit, with a short it sound, but it's not a bit, it should be B, beach. And finally, a lot of students pronounce nouns as verbs and verbs as nouns, because some words, they have the same spelling, but they can be both a noun and a verb. So, for example, with this word here, which is a noun, we need to say conduct, conduct. Con is where the stress is. But if you say conduct, conduct with stress on the duct, well, that is a verb. So always check your pronunciation. It's going to allow you to avoid mistakes and increase your speaking score. Let's move on to number 5, which is check you're using the word correctly. Even if you think you're using a word correctly, you might not be. Because of that, it's always wise, it's always smart to check just to see if you're using it correctly. To do so, you can use one of two methods. You can use AI to check whether you're using the word correctly, or alternatively, you can get a teacher or a native speaker to check. Remember, just knowing high-level words doesn't mean you're going to get a high score for vocabulary. You need to be using those words correctly. If you look at the band descriptors, for a band 8 in lexical resource or vocabulary, it says occasional inaccuracies in word choice. So that means occasionally you use the wrong word. However, if you use the wrong word a lot of the time, well, you're never going to get to band 8 for your vocabulary score. Let's move on to the next tip now, which is use new words in your sentences. Just knowing words or knowing better vocabulary is not enough. You actually have to use it in your writing and speaking. Remember, it's your job to show the examiner that you have a high level of vocabulary. Because remember, the examiner doesn't know you. He or she does not know your current level of English. So it's your job to show the examiner how fantastic your vocabulary is. So whenever you learn a new word, write example sentences. And whenever you do this, don't just copy the dictionary. Make it about your life, or maybe pretend you're answering a real IELTS question. Use them in your daily life is another thing you can do. Try to add these words into your vocabulary so you sound more professional, more like a professional speaker. The more you use a word, the more it's going to go into your memory, and the more you're going to have a wide vocabulary for all situations. And if you're aiming for a high band score in your speaking, you need to have a wide resource, a wide range of vocabulary that you not only know, but can also actually use. And once a week or maybe once a month, you should go back and look at your notes just to remind yourself of the words you've learned. But remember, looking is not enough. You need to actually use the words in sentences and try to make sentences. When you do make a sentence with a new word, like we talked about before, make sure you check that it's correct. Now, something else you can do, whenever you make a sentence, ask yourself this question: can I use better language? So let's pretend you say this: I think smoking is very bad for the health of people. The grammar is correct, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the word, or the words, very bad are extremely common and very basic language. They're very basic English. So instead of saying very bad, you could say, I think smoking is detrimental to the health of people. This is obviously much more professional. So it's a great question to ask. Can I use better language? Now, if you do want to learn some words that you can use to improve your vocabulary score, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. See you next time, and all the best with your studies.